When you think of the most famous friendships in the Bible, Ruth and Naomi, David and Jonathan, Jesus arguably, and Peter, James, and John, what did they do? If you go back and examine the biblical text, what did they do together? Did they sit and have coffee? Did they study the scriptures together? More often than not, they had stuff to do. They had chores, they had work, they were on a mission. If you think of Barnabas and anybody, Saul, Paul, John Mark, Silas, they were always doing. The friendship happened en route to accomplishing whatever it was they wanted to accomplish. That doesn't mean the friendship was secondary. It just means it happened as a result of, not as the goal of, their ministry. And somehow in common contemporary churches, we've gotten the idea that friendships and relationships and togetherness is the thing that we should all be striving toward. And I think it's hugely important, fantastically important. I mean, the gospel is relational. Of course, we're brothers and sisters and heirs and joint heirs, and we're all part of the family of God, and we're tethered to one another, that they may be one, Jesus says, as you and I are one, the Father and one. So yeah, it's critically important. But how we elevate that importance and how we help people experience that brotherly love is I think worth examining, because it seems to me that most of the time what we say is, you need friendships, so hey, let's all have a pancake breakfast. Or friendships are really important, so hey, let's all do a soup supper or whatever. And it's not that those things are bad, but anytime that relationships themselves are the goal, it feels like we've missed out on a huge opportunity. Because the truth is, when we're doing something together, we're going to become friends. Because what I want is to serve Jesus faithfully. And what you want is to serve Jesus faithfully. What I want is to become a better husband and a dad and a son and a leader and a boss and be better with my money. And I think Jesus is going to help me that. And I'm studying the scriptures, and the scriptures say iron sharpens iron. So when I'm with you and you want all those same things and you know the Holy Spirit's working in you, man, if we're focused on something else, we kind of have those assumptions, those safe assumptions, those godly assumptions running in the background system processes of our mind. And those relationships are going to happen while we're doing the other things, while we're being obedient to the mission of Jesus to bring new people into the church, into the family of God, while we're loving and serving and caring for others, while we're emptying the trash outside of the coffee bar at church on a Sunday morning. I mean, those relationships are formed on mission. And I alluded earlier to the book by Zygmunt Bauman called Community, where he delineates the difference between communitas and community. And communitas, again, simply is the fact that we're going to be better buddies if being buddies isn't the goal of our relationship. If instead the point of us being together is to faithfully execute the mission of Jesus, to cooperate with God and heal the world, but we're going to become way better friends as we do that than we would if we were ever just trying to be buddies. Which, P.S., is why I think so many church men's ministries and so many church women's ministries fail, or at least feel fraudulent or forced or whatever. It's because the goals are too inward and too reflexive. So I'll give you an example of how this works. Recently, I took a short-term mission trip with my son. He's 11 years old. This is his first time out of the country on something other than a little vacation. And we went with our church youth group to Guatemala. And in Guatemala, we were building a small church. So I was there humping bags of sand over my shoulder, up all these stairs with all these young guys. And I'm 38, and everybody else on the trip was, 18, 19, and I'm not really there as a pastor. I mean, there are other pastors and other leaders on the trip. I'm just there to, make sure my kid isn't annoying, and because I love him, and I kind of want to see how this all goes. Well, at the end of the trip, and remember, I didn't lead a single devotional time, I didn't preach any sermons, all I did was move bags of sand upstairs and make sure my kid was safe. Well, at the end of the trip, I had every single one of those participants say to me, man, I've never felt closer to any pastor. I'm so glad you're my pastor. Well, why? Well, it's because we were doing something together. We were moving bags of sand together, but somehow in that process of making little jokes, of complaining together about how hot it was, of agonizing over how heavy these bags were, somehow those relationships were formed as we did something else. And I think more and more and more our churches have to acknowledge the value of the something else and leverage that for relationships rather than leveraging relationships in order to get stuff done.